Welcome to Mitts Off, episode 13. Today we are joined by Florida Panthers forward Sam Reinhart, former second overall draft pick of the Buffalo Sabres, and a guy that has worked his way into becoming one of the elite two-way players in the National Hockey League. Mitts Off is powered by Sports Interaction, your homegrown sportsbook, and our exclusive betting partner. Get in the action, download the app to get started. 19 plus, please play responsibly. Here he is, Florida Panthers forward Sam Reinhart, off to a great start down in Florida. Thanks for joining us, man.
Doing great. Waking up in California, can't complain.
Talk about the playoff run, man. That was so much fun to watch last year. You guys going from maybe a team, no one really expected to having the run you did. Like, you guys went down to basically like the final minute versus Boston, right? And I know you had a big series too, but can you talk about the mindset, kind of going into game 7 and even like in that third period, like, were you thinking that this might be it, or was it like never, that was never an option? Were you just kind of just right to the last second?
Well, that's the beauty of being the underdog, right? I mean, you talk about game 7, a minute, whatever it was left, being down. Game 5 probably being down and at some point of the game. It was just such a contrast from the year before when the season was so easy for us, and then we had Washington the first round. Expectations were so high, and Washington comes in and they can really do no wrong. They're not expected to win, but we got relatively lucky in that series. There were so many turning points that could have gone the other way. It was a lot of our first series wins in our career. And then we got beat up pretty good against Tampa, the next series. So we went in kind of with a different mindset. We had been playing playoff hockey since early January. So we were so comfortable and we're all kind of enjoying how kind of, embracing the underdog role and it kind of took the pressure off of us. I think the biggest thing we take was we kind of made it, almost all the way. But, I think you look at a lot of these teams that are winning, they've been there before. They've gone through stuff like this. So I think the biggest thing, we've all taken the confidence and that we can get back there, that we can win it. So you learn a lot against a loss against a team like Vegas that, was ultimately the better team and the healthier team. And, their depth really showed.
We're in Toronto here, obviously, and I grew up still closet Leafs fan. I like to come in and out of it to say that, depending on how well they're doing it. But I want to know, what was the feeling going into the Leafs series for you guys? Like, they're obviously, they probably were the favorites. They got a dynamic offense. Like, what was the mindset for you guys going into that series? Well, how were you feeling going into it?
It was so quick. You're on such a high against Boston. Like you said, you're a minute away from going home. For about 4 days, we were a minute away from going home. So, you're on such a high. You probably feel this too. I've always said, when you're kind of going through a schedule and you're playing every other day, you feel good. You're in that routine. As soon as you get that extra day off and you have 2 days in between game, I feel like every team comes out flat. So Toronto had that extra day off. We just kept our routine. We stayed over in Boston, celebrated the win a little bit, got a rest, flew to Toronto, and it was boom, another game the next day. So we were just kind of in that routine. We had kind of thought that first game was going to be our easiest game just because we were kind of in it still. And then it was going to get harder from there. And obviously you get 2 on the road. That's a heck of a start and puts pressure on a team like that and the media. And, they just beat Tampa for the first time in ever. So, to start that way just shifted all the pressure to that.
Yeah, and then you take care of them, right? And then you take care of Carolina, you make it out of the East and end up playing Vegas. I think the biggest storyline for me is you get to play Jack again, right? Jack Eichel comes
Mhm.
back into the fold, who's a big part of Vegas's success. I guess my first part to that question is like, you spent all his 6 years in Buffalo. You were with him, and now you're playing him in the Stanley Cup Finals. Was that special to you? Was that weird? How was it being out on the ice against him and battling for the cup?
It was special. I mean, we had gone through so much together. Just to know in that time that someone was gonna reach their ultimate goal was pretty special for all that we had put in together to have success together. It didn't really go our way. It was a cool experience for us to go through. Obviously happy for him and all the success that he's had.
Man, a heck of a player too. Wow, he's made some strides just like you have. But even, I want to go back to Buffalo. And I mean, you have your first couple years, and then, the stuff starts happening with Jack, right? He gets hurt, and your name's kind of on the block. Like, I just feel like things started going kind of south for I don't know, not the team, but can you bring me back into that year and that time in Buffalo where everything was just kind of up in the air? Like, wasn't sure what was happening with Jack. Your name was getting tossed around. Like, can you bring me back into that time in Buffalo for you?
It was not very easy.
Yeah.
That's for sure. There was there's so many guys kind of on short-term deals. And then I think it's the COVID year you're referring to, right?
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
we were all in our divisions. We had some expectations. You brought in Halsey, who's a heck of a player. Did you play with him in Edmonton at all?
Oh yeah, buddy. Edmonton and
You did,
Jersey.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, perfect. So we have some expectations. We get put in a division, and we laugh about it now, but in the time you're going into Washington, you're going into Boston, you're going into the Islanders, you're going into the Rangers, and there's no room out here.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like there was four different leagues, and the division we were in that year was not easy. So we obviously got off to a rocky start. Ice gets hurt. He kind of wants out. His future's up in the air. I mean, I had been on short-term deals my whole career there. I never had anything long, never really had anything offered long. So I was just kind of waiting it out and keep my options open. And so it was just a tough year from that standpoint. Just some guys on all short-term deals, not knowing what's going on. Not too sure about the future in Buffalo, their future in Buffalo. So it's just a recipe to not really go well.
You got traded in the summer, right? In July?
Yeah, it was draft day during the end of the first round.
Did you know, like, I'm pretty sure you figured that you were getting traded, but do you have any sense where you were going, if you were staying in the Eastern Conference? Did you know much about it, or how did that all work out for you?
I knew there was a good possibility. It was that time when I was an RFA, so I could kind of control it. Speaking now with my agent tells me there was obviously a lot of teams that he was kind of trying to kind of work his way around and say no to a couple and kind of push a couple forward to try and come out. So kind of have some control in that situation, because a lot of teams aren't going to trade you without a deal in place.
Yeah.
Knowing you're an RFA and can ultimately walk in a year or two. So Florida was one of the very few teams that I was willing to get a deal done, and Billy trusted it. It wasn't a sign on the spot like some of the guys do. It was just that we were going to be able to work something out, and it was something we were both excited about.
Were you fired up about it? Like, were you hurt at all? I know there's like an emotional attachment when you were in Buffalo for so long. Like, what was your initial, I guess, reaction and like feeling to it?
I mean, I was excited. To see the success that Florida had the year before. I mean, they played Tampa pretty well. Tampa ultimately got them and ended up winning. So I knew they were close. So I was pretty excited. I wanted to play playoff hockey. That's what you want as a player, and I'd gone many years without tasting it. So I've been fortunate enough, and it's gone pretty well. And I think it's only getting better for us.
You scored a huge goal in that Toronto series, going back to it. And Paul Maurice had a great quote after the game. He said that you do so many good things in small areas of the game that you almost have to watch them on video. And I find that too, man. Like, I'm working as an analyst now. And when I watch your games, I watch you play, and like, you have this innate ability, like, to use your time and space to your advantage. I would call you like a very efficient player, right? Like, I know you're probably not going to take offense to this, but you're not going to beat, Connor McDavid in a one-on-one like skating battle, right? But you're able to use your puck protection, your edges, and your awareness, time, space to like make really good plays on the ice. Like, my question is like, how? Like, what is your, mindset at knowing that and knowing your skill set? Like, can you give me some insight on how you kind of think the game and how you want to approach it?
Well, first, I think that's why I feel in my mind that's why I'm having a little bit more success. Speed wise, I did get quite a bit faster this summer. For me, I'm still not beating a Connor McDavid one-on-one in open ice. With speed, I don't think many guys are. But just a little bit quicker for me is gonna give me that much more time and space to make some plays. So. I'm happy with how the summer went, kind of pushing forward and getting a little bit quicker. In terms of what I'm thinking, I watch way less video now than I did my first couple of years. I've found when I'm playing my best, I'm not really watching. I'm thinking less. It helps having the stability of a coach. I've had so many in my career, and now, not just me, our team is so is so comfortable and so familiar with our systems that allows guys not to really think out there, just kind of play. So I think that's benefited me, a lot as well. And so to be honest, I'm not really thinking much. Obviously learned a lot from my dad. I think he thought the game the same way growing up, learning from him, just, kind of chatting after games, getting coached by him. I kind of play a similar game to him, and he wasn't the fastest by any means, as well when he played, but he was still a skating defenseman in his own right. So, learned a lot from him.
Yeah, big Paul Reinhart. I didn't know he was from Kitchener. That's a fun fact. Nice, good old Ontario boy. Love to hear that. I want to ask him about his influence on you. I want to go back to that thought you had on video, but I'd love to talk about your dad and the influence he had on you. Obviously, NHL All-Star, Calgary Flames, Vancouver Canucks. Can you talk about your old man Paul a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, two older brothers, one who you played with a couple times. He coached us all growing up. He was on the ice, even if he wasn't a coach, he was on the ice running practices. So, we learned so much from him. He was retired before we were born. He had a little back injury, and so he hung him up pretty early. But he still loves the game. He would love to be a coach if it wasn't for the travel and the schedule. But I owe a lot to my passion and the way I think about the game to him.
You mentioned video. I thought that was so interesting because, listen, I'm going to equate this to me fighting, but I used to watch so much tape of guys scrap. When I first entered pro, my first couple of years, even when I got into the NHL a little bit with Edmonton, I was watching every fight from the night before, like every guy. And I was getting so cluttered with film and getting so nervous that I just dialed it way back down. And like, I trusted myself and my instincts enough that I'd watch a couple pre-scouts, but like, I didn't have to watch too much. So what do you mean by less video? Like, did you before watch a lot of defensemen and goalies and like pre-scout them in that way? Or are you watching less video or tape of yourself?
Yeah, less of myself. I'm watching hockey every night, regardless, just, as a fan of the game. But it's less for myself. I understand penalty kill. I understand power play. You can always watch. You can always learn. It's almost like football in that sense. It's more structured. There's a pause button that can help in those situations, and especially in game. If you're watching another team's penalty kill, you could see kind of make adjustments on the fly. I understand that for sure, but seeing these iPads on the bench in a 5-on-5 game, thinking the exact same play is going to happen 2 shifts later is a little crazy to me. But years 5-6 years ago, probably I started working with Oatesy, Adam Oates. Worked with him for a couple of years. Did a lot of video. But it was almost too much video. So it's more the skills that I took from him. And then just kind of realized that the video wasn't really doing as much for me. So kind of stepped away and just kind of started playing again.
Man, you are I think, third in a row and like sixth guy we've talked to that's an Oates guy. This guy truly is like the hockey whisperer, right?
He is. I stopped a couple of years ago. I did it for 2-3 years. The skills I learned was unbelievable. I kind of figured out how to use them in my game. And then there came a point it was a little too much for me. Watching the video, I was thinking about it a little too much. So, I was able to kind of step away, but still kind of keep those skills. So, I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, but I'd recommend it to a lot of guys.
Man, you dropped the iPad line too. I went nuts on TV the other day because I don't know, Stutzley or something had it out. You see it every game, man. Like at least once a game. It's wild, dude. Like I could never even fathom. I had a hard time going back in between periods and going on the computers that we had and watching it without fear of like a veteran guy being like, hey, like get back in here. Let's just talk it out. Is that kind of how you think more, especially with younger players, that they're, thinking about that too much rather than just kind of reacting to situations?
I think so. Cause it's all, they're all going back to one play to look at. There's something that happened on their shift, and it's one play. That realistically is that play is going to happen 5 times all year, and probably not in that game again. I don't know what they're trying to learn, what they're trying to, in game on the bench. I mean, I also wouldn't want to be staring at a screen and then going back on and getting called for a shift 2 seconds later. I don't know, but it's every shift. It's a lot of the same guys, but it seems crazy to me. I know some teams, some coaches have put guys on timeouts and take them off the bench every now and then, but some guys are relentless with it.
I got pick on this video thing one more time. I felt like for me watching video, I was too hard on myself. So I had a vet tell me one time when you make a play, it's never as good as you think and it's never as bad as you think. And I would just think that every turnover or mistake I made was all 18,000 people were looking down at me being like, oh my God, get that 20. He's the worst. What a mistake. But were you similar in the fact that did you hold yourself in too high of regard? Were you too high on yourself? Too hard on yourself? Sorry, watching video and stuff like that?
Not too hard. I can relate to that. I go back to playoffs. When my first year in playoffs, so 2 years ago, I think a lot of us were too hard on ourselves, making mistakes. And then you kind of took that pressure off the next go around. You're Stanley Cup Finals, you're still making mistakes, and you know what? It's still okay. So I don't think I was ever too hard on myself on the video, but that's something I can relate in kind of going through it in the playoffs and kind of learned to not be as hard on myself and just kind of play. And, it's tough at times not to get hard on yourself when, like you said, it seems like everyone's staring directly at you.
You said pressure, man. That got me thinking a little bit of something I wanted to ask you. You're obviously a high pick. We've had a couple first rounders in this chair. And I like seeing the development of guys, especially on their hockey DBs. And you were one of those guys, high pick, got the 9-game tryout, went back to junior, finished you went to Rochester, played those 3 games, and that was your last American League, stint, but everyone's different, right? And I feel like there's a lot of guys, top picks, like call it like Slavkovsky this year in Montreal, Kent Johnson in Columbus. Like, I feel like there's a ton of pressure on really high picks to play early. And if they don't make it right away, it's kind of seen as like a failure or a bust. And I know that like you benefited from going back to junior. I feel like you've had a heck of a career. I don't know. What's your take on that in terms of the development of like really high players and prospects? I know it's obviously situational, but there's certain paths for everybody, right? And I just know from your experience, talk about it.
You see the guys making this decisions themselves now. A lot of these college guys, and you see the success that those guys have had with the extra year, the extra, whatever it is, going back the extra development for that year. So it's obviously something that works. In my situation, looking back, it did benefit for a couple of reasons. One, probably wasn't quite ready to be the player that I should have been coming in. That the team wasn't in a great spot. So when I got sent back, there was two things on mine. One, World Juniors, go win that, be ready for that. Two was my season on the ice. I wasn't in junior. I wasn't too concerned about. It was all training. It was all off ice. I could be playing a back-to-back and working out in between and knowing I could be a little tired the next day, but this workout's gonna enhance my chances next year and make me more ready. So I definitely took a little bit, away from my on-ice performance, my junior season to get myself ready. So it was definitely a conscious effort to take advantage of that extra year. And, that's where these college kids now are benefiting so much. There's two sides of it. You can go back to junior, you can play 72 games. That's one way to kind of prepare for the NHL. Or there's another side. You can play, I don't know how many games do they play, 40 games, and you're in the gym twice as much. So you kind of see different routes guys are taking, and some benefit different, but it's probably a factor why these college kids are coming out and having so much success early on.
I played over 300 something games in the American League. I'm obviously a big proponent of guys spending at least some time in the AHL. Would you agree? I know you only played 3 games. You were there for a week. You probably said, I never want to come back to Rochester again. But like, do you kind of agree in the sense, should everybody spend a little time in the AHL and see what it's like?
You know what? Just to quickly add to what I was saying before, I'm convinced even the next year I came back to Buffalo, I'm convinced it was 7-8 games in and I was a period away from getting sent down in my mind. I was kind of bouncing around. I was kind of snake bitten early. I had one game in the island. I had, I think it was 7-8 minutes and just got a 2-on-1 lucky kind of goal, in the third period. And that kind of bumped me up and I kind of ran from there. But so it was such a fine line of staying in and having a good rookie season or getting sent down, and who knows what can happen down there or just to someone's confidence or whatever. And like you said, especially as a high pick, it only, makes you feel worse. Like you said, like it's, a million people staring down at you thinking you got sent down and wondering why. But I don't know enough about it. I think it all depends the player. I think there's some very good players in the NHL that if they get sent down, they're probably going to look exactly the same. In my mind, I don't know enough about it, but that probably wouldn't blow it out of the water like you think they would, or the average fan would think they would. I think it's just some people's styles, some people's games. They're not going to have 120 points no matter what league they're in. That's just not their game. They might be honest players. They're not cheating the game. They're playing the right way, and that's just not in them. So I think it would benefit a lot of guys, but probably not everybody.
Barkov is a guy that I think is finally starting to get his recognition after all these years, and especially after the run last year, just how special he is, what he's able to do on the ice with you guys. Can you tell me just a bit about Barks and what makes him so special as a player?
God, the shit he does on the ice. If he played in Toronto, he would be on. He would be on Twitter. He would be on
Oh yeah.
Instagram every day. Like you could put the puck. He could be skating full stride to the neutral zone. You could put the puck on his offside, 4 feet behind him. He would roll his stick back, put it between it. Like it's like the shit he does is absurd. There was a play last night. We were on the power play. He was on the half wall battling with, I think it was a 1-on-3 on the half wall in zone on the power play. And, I was standing net front. No one moved to support him. Like we just kind of figured he was winning the battle, getting the puck. Got the puck, ended up getting I think it was a third assist, fourth assist, to get the credit for it. But the play was just made by him. So I mean, I finally now, it took me some time with Ikes as well to kind of learn how to play with him and how to work off him. And I feel like Bark and I have finally found our stride. I've learned how to, he's not going to change his game, and nor should he. So I think we both found a way to play with each other. The stuff he does defensively, he makes it so easy on all the guys. And I think just, to see how he elevated last year in the playoffs is crazy. It was like he is in the season. He just wins every puck battle. Prior maybe guys elevated and to see him elevate back to that what he is in the season and just dominate that way was pretty special to see, and obviously got all the confidence in the world in him.
Jarome Iginla for me was a guy that I had literally pictures of my wall on growing up. And I played against him in Edmonton. He was with Boston, got out there. I put my stick up on him one time. He did the same thing on the face-off, and he stepped back, and he was like, "Kid, are you kidding me? Like, what's going on?" And I was just like, man, dude, I'm just trying to get something going here. But he was a guy I really respected and looked up to. And I read that he was similar for you too. And that's so interesting because when I watched him play, I see flashes of his game and yours as well. Obviously a guy you watched growing up playing for the Flames.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you knew that, if you knew that before you asked
yeah,
that.
No,
he was
I
my
read
favorite
that.
player. It was funny. Like I said, my dad was retired before, me and my 2 older brothers were all born. He had played for Atlanta, Calgary, and Vancouver. And funny enough, all our favorite teams, Max liked Atlanta. I liked Calgary. Griffin liked Vancouver. I always watched Iginla. I don't know why. You go back to video and a conversation at the start. Growing up, I never, I watched a lot of hockey, but it wasn't a conscious effort to study and actually think. So it's not something I ever really thought about to model my game after him. Or, I think once I got a little bit older into junior, I think maybe like a Taze or something like that, I started modeling it a little bit after. But I've never heard that comparison. I mean, I'm honored. Obviously, he was my favorite player growing up. School projects on him I did in multimedia class, just kind of all that. So he's probably the guy I watched the most growing up for sure.
A kid that probably watched you growing up, whether he admits it or not. You've played 2 games against Connor Bedard so far this year. Absolutely special individual, special kid. Everything that I've talked to from Halsey is all the most positive, just cool stuff about him off the ice. But you've played him twice already. First thoughts and impressions on playing him. I know he had a couple really nice ones the other night versus you guys, but your first thoughts on playing against Bedard.
Well, we're both from North Shore in Vancouver. We live about 15 minutes from each other. Unfortunately, I've never come across him in the summer training on the ice or anything. I don't know him personally. From what I hear, he's an absolute workhorse, and his dedication to the game is second to none. So that's unbelievable to see out of a kid that age, and no shock the success he's had early on. His release, his skill set is unmatched, and it's only going to get better, which is scary. But he had a pickpocket last night on the goal line and ended up going bar down over Bobby. just kind of little things he does. His assist in or his goal, I guess, but his play made before his goal in Tampa. Do you see in the neutral zone, just kind of putting a stick down like that? Just so sneaky. And as he gets more comfortable, I mean, he's already got almost a goal a game in his first 13. So, I mean, the sky's the limit, and he's unbelievable for the league.
Before this interview is done, I knew I had to make a note to ask you about. I want to see what you say this. I played with Lomby. I played with Ryan Lomberg in Stockton for a full year. What a special human being. One of the funniest guys I know and I've played with. Like, as a person, but as a player too, man. Like, talk about a guy who is way more skilled than people think. Like, his hands, his shot, his speed, like in a straight line is going to skate with anyone in hockey. Probably 80% of hockey viewers and fans don't even know who this kid is, but he's a great player for you guys, like a great fourth line depth player. And I want to know, just give me some stuff on Ryan and what, how, I would say how important he is to your guys' depth and bottom six.
He's unbelievable. You look at Vegas, you look at their bottom six, if you want to call them that. They all fly around the ice. They've all got speed. They all got grit, and they've got skill. And that's, Lombo was a guy that has that, and you can win with that. It's so important to have. Lombo's hilarious on the bench. I die laughing every time. It's
he doesn't shut up.
When there's when there's a whistle and everyone slides down the bench, and the guys go off the middle of the bench, you slide down, the new guys come on, sit down. Every time it's priceless to me. It's Lombo just kind of gets up, and as everyone slides down, he just shuffles over to the end of the bench to chirp at the other bench. I feel like the guy. Who's the coach? Is it McDaniels who's the coach in the NFL that
Mike McDaniel?
No, the guy that literally the guy's job is to move the guy out, down the sideline away from the play. Have you seen that guy?
No.
I forget what team it was. It's literally a coach. He dresses like the coach and he moves him from the ref in the play as it's coming, he's so dialed on the game. It's literally how I feel with Lombo. It's like he stands up, I just push him down the bench so we can all move down. It's hilarious to me, but just his personality, just he's always talking in the room. He's always talking on the ice. It's not changing for him.
Man, I gotta ask, because you're going to UFA this summer, and I'm sure you want to go back there. I mean, from talking to Loms, it's one of the best dressing rooms that he's ever been a part of in terms of the way you guys act and interact and the veteran leadership in there. Thoughts on approaching UFA? Try to get something done this year? Are you just going to put that aside?
I'm comfortable with it being ongoing. We're just kind of starting now, so we'll see how it unfolds. I don't really know. Obviously, they want me here. I want to be here. It's just a matter of getting it done and agreeing on something. Obviously, there's the position. The Panthers are in. There's so much that needs to be done in the next year or two to keep our core together. So hopefully it all works out.
All right. Well, you're the man. Thank you so much. I know you're on the road, taking some time out of your day. Appreciate it, man.
No problem.
All right. Go Cats.